Hello, welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the Monday show with me, Andrew Musgrove, and him, Mark Crothers. We're going to look back on Newcastle United's 2-0 win over Nottingham Forest up at St James's Park, which has hopefully sent everybody into the international break in really good spirits. As always, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Do click the link in the podcast description box and take advantage of an exclusive discount on your plan. This has been given to us by Nord for our listeners and viewers of the Everything is Black and White podcast. You can protect yourself, support the podcast at the same time. Prices with that discount start at just £2.30. Mark, welcome back. You good?
I am good. Certainly better off the last few days. Really positive week for the club, and just shows there was no need to panic, was there?
We were never panicking, were we? Newcastle United, as we've said there, beat Nottingham Forest 2-0, goals from Bruno and Varder. And as Mark has also said, it is the end to what has been a really good week for Newcastle United and an important week in terms of their season so far as well.
It has, yeah. I think it's every kind of aspect of it has gone in their favour, hasn't it? The performances, more so against Union Saint-Gilloise, was a brilliant away performance in Europe. I thought it looked like a performance of an established European team. I think they controlled the game brilliantly, barring the odd little blip here and there. You looked at the attacking play, something just seemed to click in the game. And I do wonder if it's, I know we're going to talk about him probably quite a bit, but in terms of Nick Varder, obviously he's not experienced in terms of European competition, but he is used to coming up against defenders of that caliber. So I think what you're seeing there is his influence increasing on the side. In terms of the Forest game, I kind of think the performance wasn't really the important thing. It was about just getting the win, getting that Premier League win, and really giving a platform to build on when everyone comes back from the international break. Because you look at moods, and as good as the midweek win was, if Newcastle hadn't got 3 points yesterday, you just wonder what the mood would have been like going into this international break. And I think it could go down as one of the most important wins of the season.
Totally agree with you there. I think there was two really important elements. One was to build on the win in Brussels. It couldn't have just been kind of a one-off or another kind of block in this stop-start season that we've seen so far. They needed to make sure that they got the win. Didn't matter how it was going to come about, as long as they picked up 3 points against Forest. That was the main thing. Have to admit, with all the pressure on Ange Postecoglou, the fact that he was reportedly going to be sacked if he lost this game, the old cynic in me felt it would have been very Newcastle United to lose that game against a man who's under immense pressure. But yes, excuse me, the boost going in the international break, absolutely crucial, because you don't want to lose this game and then have 2 weeks to sit around and think about it. Even if you're going away on international duty, probably still there in the back of your mind thinking, well, actually, we've got to come back after this 2 weeks and really start picking up some points. So the boost, the positive impact this has over the next 2 weeks for those away, for those staying on Tyneside, for the fans watching and listening this, it's invaluable, really.
It's momentum. That's what it is. And I think any manager I speak to at any level, they'll always tell you that momentum is the biggest thing in football. And Newcastle now have some build up. You just think, and I don't want to rake back over it, but if they could have claimed a win against Arsenal, and think how much momentum that would have gained going into this week as well and into the break. But, it wasn't to be for whatever reason. We obviously raked over that last week at length. But I thought that the comeback in Belgium on Wednesday to move on from that disappointment was massive. The mentality was excellent. I just thought it was a really controlled display. And although Sunday wasn't always controlled, I felt Forest, I felt as if they didn't come and attack Newcastle. They were quite happy just to sit back and soak it up. And that kind of, to me, felt as if it went against their own instincts, particularly the manager's instincts. So it kind of played in Newcastle's favour a little bit.
Yeah, it was a little bit strange because we know that an Ange Postecoglou team is very attacking. It's totally different to what you come to expect from a Nuno Nottingham Forest side, for instance. And that's obviously part of the reason that he's struggling so badly. Just it was a little bit strange to see him in many ways change his approach and sit back, sit deep, try and frustrate Newcastle United. And you said there, kind of played it in the hands, but actually I disagree with you because they created chances to Newcastle United and Matt Sells pulled off, half a dozen great saves. But Forest, for quite a large part of that game, although not in control, they frustrated Newcastle. I mean, don't know about you. I go in that interval thinking they've had 1 or 2 chances here. Is this going to play out like other games have this season where they've not taken their chances, the visiting side come back out and grab a winner, and even at 1-0, you're still thinking, I really need that second goal to calm everybody's nerves. I think they frustrated Newcastle United, and had it been a team accustomed to playing like that, I think Newcastle would have had more problems. But because it was kind of a short-term fix to essentially not losing the game rather than trying to win the game, Newcastle United had that little bit more about them to actually break them down and thankfully get 3 points.
So I think without Wednesday's win, I think it may have played out that way, where Forest may have sneaked at least a point. But I think the confidence Newcastle got, particularly in the final third from Wednesday, just meant that they felt they were always going to get a breakthrough. Now, it was an exceptional goal from Bruno Guimaraes. I mean, say what we want about Matt Sells. I think when one looks at it back, as great a strike as it was, it's not exactly gone his top corner. Mayfield, he should have done better. We had a little chat yesterday, didn't we, by text about VAR. For the life of me, I can't see why it took so long to review the whatever challenge before by Bruno on Morgan Gibbs-White. Clear as day, even at first sight, that he got the ball. So I don't know why it was even looked at, never mind anything else. But yeah, I just always felt Newcastle would break through. I think Alanga obviously had a difficult afternoon, didn't really hit what he did on Wednesday. Gordon looked promising, I thought, out left, and particularly when, I think you might have said it actually online, when he cut inside. But I just always felt there would be a moment when Newcastle would break through, and it wasn't quite Walter Marder's day in terms of sort of in open play. I thought he still gave an outlet. He still held the ball up pretty well. He used it very well. Gave himself more confidence with another goal, with a brilliantly taken penalty. So I think, I did always feel things would click. It was just a matter of when.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to both the goals from Bruno and Voldemort in a moment. We'll start with the team news. It was an unchanged side to the one that won against Union SG. We have to talk, though, about Lewis Hall, who has had a torrid time of it. He was getting back to match fitness, came off the bench in that Champions League game, and then he's picked up an injury. And we don't know when he's going to be back. A few people are already asking in the comments. The truth is we just don't know. Eddie Howe said, we've been trying to manage him back, as I said on Friday. So obviously in the pre-match press conference, he was asked about Hall's fitness. Could he kind of start on Sunday? And Eddie Howe explained about managing him back. Howe, after the Forest game, though, said, unfortunately, he just felt something in that game. We've had it scanned, but before we can get conclusive evidence of how long he's going to be out, we need another rescan in about 10 days. So it's not going to be a short-term injury, but we hope it's not going to be a long-term injury. We sort of don't know yet. That is slightly concerning.
Yeah, I think they've done everything they can to try and manage Hall back to fitness, and it feels just unfortunate, if I'm honest. I realise there will be some supporters that may well try and point blame at whoever within the club for whatever, but I just look at, I think they've been cautious with him, and rightly so, and this has proven why, because if they'd rushed him back, whatever term the injury is, it would have been a lot longer term if they've rushed him back. So it is unfortunate. I feel for Lewis Hall more than anyone else, because I really think Newcastle have got, well, we know they've got an England left-back on their hands, but I do feel they've got a left-back who could play in that position for the next 10, 15 years for Newcastle United, which is very rare you can say that. When he was in form last season, I would argue he's probably one of the players of the season. I don't think that's even an argument, to be fair. And it's awful news for him, especially for the club as well, on the back of the Tino Livramento news. So, just not a great time at the moment for Newcastle injuries, but they are getting through.
Yeah, it's just on Hall. I mean, World Cup, yeah, you do fear that maybe he won't even make it into that squad with these injuries. And look, there's no blame on Newcastle United at all. As you say, they've been cautious with him, but you get to a point where he's ready to play competitive football. You've thrown him in because that's where you are in terms of the schedule. And unfortunately, he's picked something up. Fingers crossed, it isn't a long-term layoff, but we'll just have to wait and see what this scan brings in 10 or 11 days' time. Early chances from Joelinton in the first half. been plenty of questions about what Joelinton offers Newcastle United, but I thought that was one of his best performances in a long time for the Magpies. Usually, Mark, he covers ground, makes his presence felt, but I just felt, especially in that first half, he really wanted the ball. He was determined to get onto the ball, determined to push the side forward, determined to have shots on goal, to create chances. I thought he looked really, really good in that first half, and it wasn't the typical Joelinton display of just using that muscle and strength to rattle the opposition. He looked like a better all-rounded player because he was actually going on goal and testing Matt Sells out and testing the defence out.
It felt as if he was the one getting up to support Nick Voldemort, didn't it? When you watched him, I mean, I do think that the chance you're talking about there, he probably should have done a little bit better with it. I think that to me was the best chance of the first half. And but what I would say with Joelinton is, I think we're looking at a player now that we know what he can do in midfield. We know that it can, use that aggression, use that intensity and the energy and the strength and all those things. But I think now we're seeing someone adding a few more strings to the bow. He is getting better on the ball. I still think there's a lot of work to do there, but he is getting better on the ball. He's not wasting possession as much. So I think we're hopefully seeing a more all-rounded midfielder, and I think it speaks a lot about his attitude that even at his age, I mean, he's not a young player anymore, he is still willing to develop, he is still willing to learn. Clearly, the coaching staff are working hard with him. And I just think, I mean, you look at his journey at Newcastle, it's one of the greatest stories of this Newcastle United era, his journey from non-scoring, non-threatening forward to absolute powerhouse midfielder. It's just incredible. It's been a remarkable period for him. And I kind of can't imagine Newcastle side without him. Yet at the same time, I think, this is going to sound really harsh, but I think if Newcastle do want to become regular challengers for major honours, I think you probably need an upgrade in there on him. Who that is, I don't know. I still think there'll be a place in the squad for him. But if they do want to become title challengers, if they do want to challenge at the very, very top level, yes, he's in the squad, but I think in terms of that first choice 11, maybe there needs to be an upgrade there.
Well, that is what the majority of people say on social media when they talk about Joelinton. Fantastic servant, fantastic story, almost a Hollywood script like the Dan Burn story. But people are kind of realistic about potentially replacing him if Newcastle United do indeed have this long-term ambition of being right at the top of the table. That being said, if he can build on, especially that first half performance yesterday, then there's no reason why, whoever Newcastle has decided to bring in over the next couple of windows doesn't have a really difficult task of it, nailing down that third place in that midfield, if indeed that is the formation that we're talking about in 18 months' time or what have you. But yeah, I thought Joelinton was really, really good. I was impressed with him. He was the real threat in the first half. Then we get into the second half, and you've got Voldemort having one off the line. And it just felt like one of those afternoons because, as I said, Forest was sitting deep and Newcastle United were huffing and they were puffing and they were trying. There was some nice moves, some nice interlinking with the passes, and they looked threatening. But Forest were just defending like their lives depended on it, sitting deep. And although they weren't threatening, Newcastle was struggling to really break down that lower block. Up steps Bruno Gomes with a bit of magic, and it felt like it needed it. It felt like if Newcastle were going to open the scoring, it was going to take something special. A wonderful strike, yes, you do say that Matt Sells maybe should have done a little bit better, but nonetheless, a fantastic effort from Bruno Gomes. And we break down the goal. It's a corner, it's cleared, and then Forest go up the line, and Newcastle United's midfield really apply the pressure to win the ball back down. Burn is a little bit further upfield as well. Bruno breaks from the Forest box up into the middle of the pitch, wins it back off Morgan Gibbs White. What they were complaining about regards to foul, I will never ever know. Wins the ball. Brilliant to see the players playing to the whistle as well. If you're a younger viewer, first thing I was taught when I started playing football was play to the whistle.
Absolutely.
They did that. Away they went. And what I liked was that Bruno didn't stop running. Again, players who maybe win that tackle, stand their hands on the hips, done my job. Bruno kept up with play. Dan Burn carries it forward. Could have taken a shot, could have heard the cries from the Gallagher if shoot, could have picked Anthony Gordon down the left. And if you pause just before Guimaraes takes the shot. Gordon's not very happy. He's got his hands pointing down and his hands pointing up. He wants that ball, and that for the majority, probably is the right pass to make. Get it down the left so then you can swing it in for Valdemare on the end of it. But he just rolls in Guimaraes and he's calm on it. He just takes a touch, takes his time, picks his spot, takes advantage of the fact that Forest are all at sea and nowhere near him, pops it into the goal. Yes, as we said, Salisbury, we could have done better, but I'm not going to take anything away from Bruno Guimaraes. A really, really magical and important strike.
So you make a good point about the Gordon situation, because I think when you have a 6'6" forward, you can become predictable where it is just get the ball out wide, whip it in, get the ball out wide, whip it in. You know, can you cause trouble in there? Can you get Joelinton bursting the box to win those headers? The worst thing Newcastle can do now is become predictable. So I think even though it's a really small part of the game, when Burn hasn't gone out wide, it's just made Forest think, you know, because they were trying to, you could see what they were trying to do. They were trying to sort of mark the two wingers out of the game to stop that threat. So maybe just by trying to mix it up a little bit, you know, it's given Forest something to think about. Yes, I think Sells, in hindsight, will think he should have done a lot better. I don't know how a goalkeeper at that level gets beaten in the way he does. You know, if it's top corner, you go, fair enough. It was not really top corner at all. I don't know if it's his start position or his movement towards the ball, but whatever it is, it hasn't worked. But it's still a great strike from Bruno. I think, am I right in saying there's only Gary Speed and Rob Lee now have scored more Premier League goals from midfield than Bruno for Newcastle? I may be wrong. If I am, please.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I've not heard that stat. I'm sure someone will correct us if Mark is indeed
centre midfield, I'll quickly say.
But he's still yet to hit double figures for Newcastle United. And I think when you talk about Newcastle becoming predictable because they've got such a big forward up front, it throws the responsibility onto the shoulders of Bruno, Tonali, Joelinton, the wingers as well. But I want to talk specifically about whoever plays in the middle to actually step up and get the goals. You know, Bruno is a fantastic captain, fantastic leader. He gets it. Part of me actually thinks he will be here until his legs can no longer carry him. I really do think that. I look at Tonali and I think I could see him go to Madrid in a few years' time, but I think Bruno will be here until the bitter end. But what we need to see from him is more goals. You know, he's such an impressive player. I mean, 10 out of 16 duels won yesterday, 70 touches, 44 out of 51 passes. It was arguably his probably second or third best performance this season. At Liverpool, he set the bar, but since then, I don't think he's quite got anywhere near that level. I thought against Forest, he was back towards that, but it's goals. Not just him, Tonali, Joelinton. They need to add goals as well, because otherwise, Newcastle United, you know, they are going to get found out because they're just relying on the striker, which sounds daft, because of course you are. But what you need is to have that shared responsibility of goals. So here you are, Bruno, if you're watching, right? You've had 5-5, 7-5, and then you got your first one on Sunday. Let's aim for 12, 15, 12.
Well, the thing is, no top side has ever been successful based on just a striker or two strikers. It's always been, and I always say it, the best sides that I've witnessed in my time watching football were that Barcelona side under Pep, and I would argue that treble-winning side of Manchester United, when they had obviously four strikers, but you still had Giggs, Beckham, Scholes pitching in with goals. The defence always pitched in with goals. That Barcelona team, you had Iniesta and Xavi, and even Busquets as a holding midfielder, still pitched in with goals. So, yes, that's what Newcastle need to do. Bruno's record, according to what I'm reading here, is 24 goals and 27 assists in 163 games, which is roughly, I think, 1 in every 3, which is more than credible in Premier League level, I would say. But I think when you know what he's capable of, and I think that the Liverpool goal is a good example of it, where, you know, he's not necessarily the tallest midfielder, but he still got in the box and got a good header in. So I think he is capable of that. We've seen him score all sorts of goals during his time at the club. Yes, there is an improvement in terms of goal output, but I think that has to be shared. You can't just, like you said there, you can't just focus it on Bruno Guimaraes. It's got to be Joelinton. It's got to be the wingers in particular. And Eddie Howe said it himself. You know, if this system's going to work with Nick Valdemare up front, was a phrase he used, the wingers have to be firing. I think it was something along those lines. And he's right. You know, we can't just look to Nick Valdemare, who's still, adapting to the Premier League as well as he's done, there has to be a supporting cast that are fit and firing as well.
Certainly so. We've got Jay saying we need to be more aggressive, finding attacking options more consistently in the midfield. Gary is telling me off. He says I need to wash my mouth out because Tonali will be here forever. Thank you very much for your comments, everyone. Hello to Darren. Hello to Les. Hello to Florin. Hello to Ross. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Without trying to look as if I'm trying, and I think you had to go at me last time for this, and you've just done it about Tonali going elsewhere. But look, if he was, and we hope he doesn't for a long, long time, but if he was to go, I can't even imagine what fee Newcastle would ask for him, because I think he was as important as the striker they sold in the summer to what they're doing. I think without Sandro Tonali, Newcastle are nowhere near as good a side. I think that's how important he is. So if they were to sell him, and obviously I hope they don't, I think you are looking at a price tag well in excess of 120.
Oh, easy.
And I think you would be selling him to a top club on the continent as well. I just think he can just do everything. I watched him yesterday, and I wouldn't even say it was anywhere near his best game, but he was still one of the best midfielders on the pitch. Just incredible. Just the energy, the quality on the ball, the drive, the intelligence in and out of possession.
I watched Tonali, and he reminds me of so many of Newcastle's greatest midfielders. Like the engine of Gary's speed, the kind of ability to pick a pass but be a goal threat at the same time of Rob Lee. You've got the leadership of I mean, you could say Bruno for example. You know, he just seems to be this kind of Iron Man mix of some of the most fantastic midfielders we've seen at this club, and long may it continue, because yesterday didn't do anything particularly outstanding. He very nearly scored what would have been one of the greatest goals I've ever seen, by the way, at St James's Park. John Anderson on BBC Newcastle is adamant that Tonali was trying to cross it. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. It was definitely a shot at goal. Side foot, shades of Shiva versus Villa, if you remember it. This time it was from the left-hand side of the Gallagher and Sells. Very nearly got caught out. But yeah, didn't do anything that would grab the headlines, but at the same time, he just makes the side tick, doesn't he?
I think I've said it before in here that he's the best midfielder I've seen in black and white.
Interestingly, now, on Isak, there was all this talk about a contract was promised, blah, 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 blah. Wanted a big wage. Now, I was of the mindset that you do not give in to his demands. If he wants that reported wage, I think it was £250,000, £300,000 a week. That's just not going to... Newcastle can't afford that. They're not in the position to afford that. Open the door to others knocking on the door and saying, I want that big money. For me, it wasn't the right time, and it wasn't the right player to break that wage structure. Is Sandro Tonali the right player to become the first person to earn above £250,000 for Newcastle United?
Without question, yes. I just think this is going to look really sort of sour grapes, and it's genuinely not. Would Isak get any side of the world? I'm not so sure. Would Tonali? I think he does. I really do. I think that's how good he is. I think he could play at Real Madrid easy. I think he could play at Barcelona easy. I think he could play anywhere. And I think that's how good he is. So I think if Newcastle are going to go on to those levels, then you have to tie him down for as long as you can. And look, again, I mentioned this about player trade, and Newcastle do have to get better at it. There may well come a time when one of the big hitters has to go for good money, but then you've got confidence that they will bring someone in to replace him. But Tonali, for me, is one where you do everything within your power to keep him at the club as long as possible.
Let us know in the comments if you want to see Newcastle United break their wage structure, if indeed they do offer.
It's going to have to happen at some point, isn't it?
Yeah, and for me, he is the right player to do it if they can build the team around him. Although I would say if we were having this conversation last year and you asked the question about Isak getting into any team in the world, we'd probably say yes, he could. Probably would then, yeah. But I just, again, you can't be accused of this again, but you're looking through black and white eyes, aren't you, at that time? But I don't know, I just think with Tonali, I just watch him and everything just looks effortless. Again, you look back at that Manchester United game last year when they brought two subs on and they tried to close him down in the 89th minute, where he'd never stopped running all game, and he's gone on a 60-yard charge upfield and they can't get near him. That sort of energy is invaluable. But whereas Joelinton has that same sort of, I sound like a battering Joelinton, I'm really not, but whereas Joelinton has that energy,
I don't think he has that comfort on the ball as Tonali does. So for me, he's the most important player in that squad, along with Bruno.
But just to go back to the point I made about Joelinton, I actually felt on Sunday he did. It was
No,
his
he
most comfortable afternoon that I've seen in a long time from him on the ball. Usually sometimes he looks like he couldn't drop a bag of cement. The ball kind of ricochets off, or he brings it down, but it's such a big touch, it flies forward. Yesterday, everything just felt so calm and in control, especially in the first half, and hopefully we see that again.
I'm genuinely not battering Joelinton here, by the way.
We'll be battering on the door.
He
Mark,
will,
when he
will,
this.
And I'm not taking him on. But all I'm saying is, compared to Tonali, I don't think there is that level of comfort and ease and all that in possession. And look, I think Joelinton, again, is essential to Newcastle United, but I just think Tonali's just on another level.
And Jay says Tonali deserves £300,000 a week. Let us know in the comments your thoughts. We mentioned there the Tonali effort that Sel's tipped over. Then you had Valdemar hitting the bar from close range. Then you had Malik Thiaw forcing a great save from Sel's. And then Barnes, moments later, is played through. And again, another great save from Sel's. And it just felt like the second goal wouldn't come. Newcastle were camped in their half, camped in the box. I mean, you look back at the replays of some of these efforts, and you've got Dan Burn kind of nearly playing as a centre forward. They were just throwing everything at Nottingham Forest, and it just would not come, that second goal. And as time goes on, and this is the curse of being a Newcastle United fan for the best part of 30 years, not like 60 years for Mark, but you just feel like that equaliser is going to come. Forest haven't created anything all afternoon, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, I need this second goal. We need the second goal just to calm my nerves, to calm the nerves on the pitch. And it came finally through a penalty.
I didn't sense nerves on the pitch.
You didn't?
I don't think there was nerves on the pitch. I always felt Newcastle were kind of at ease with where the game was going. They looked solid at the back. I mean, we'll talk about that in a moment, I'm sure.
I wonder, though, do you think that might change if you get to 90 minutes and the board goes up in the 6 minutes?
I don't think it would have.
Felt they were in control?
I just feel, again, and this is purely based on Wednesday's win and performance, I think you're starting to see Newcastle side now becoming at ease with themselves, and we're getting back towards the first year they qualified for the Champions League is a good example because, under Howe, I should say, that back line and Nick Pope were exceptional that season and one of the best defences statistically in the Premier League. Now, we know this season they've done that already, that they're already one of, if not the best defence in the league. And I look at them, with Tonali working in front, with Bruno and Joelinton working in front, even though it's a very new defence with the two new centre, well, with Botman back to fitness and Malik Thiaw kind of still finding his feet very impressively, by the way. I just feel there's a belief that they're not going to concede. And I think it's a while since we've seen that from the Newcastle side.
So you weren't nervous at all?
No.
Maybe just me. I was certainly nervous.
Experience, Andrew.
Yeah, I was certainly nervous when Valdemar stepped up to take this penalty because I saw the kind of step back, and I'm not a fan of players taking 1 or 2 step backs. So you can have a little proper run up if you're taking a penalty, and it just felt like he needed that goal. It felt to me a little bit like the Miguel Almiron against Huddersfield kind of moment where misses a chance and you think, what happens next game? What happens next game? He feels like a player who started so well. Of course he has, but he needs to keep on scoring. He feels to me like a confidence player. And I'm going to be so intrigued and slightly concerned when he goes 2, 3, 4 games out scoring a goal, which will happen. It is football, and I'll be backing him to get back amongst the goals after that. But the longer he can keep on scoring goals, and it sounds so daft to say it because, of course, you want to score goals every game. But for me, I think it's even more important for him that I think he needs to keep that goal-scoring record going. So I was so happy that he got the ball in the back of that. It calmed my nerves. It gave Newcastle United that little bit of extra breathing space. But more for him, after missing 2 good chances, going up in a really good battle, and just, like I say, feeling like that player who needs to keep on scoring, for him to score at the Gallagher after the comments from the Bayern Munich official as well. Brilliant.
Yeah, first goal of the Gallagher as well, isn't it, for him? But I think you make a good point in terms of he probably does just need to keep scoring, and we may well see the true mental strength that he seems to have when he does have a little bit of a patch where he isn't scoring goals. But I mean, at the minute, he just looks. I think I said it when he signed that he's such a unique forward in terms of he's not really a target man. He's not an out-and-out striker. I don't think you can bracket him. I don't know how you bracket him. I just think you've just got to kind of go with what he does. I thought the performance in midweek was as good as I've seen for a long time from Newcastle forward in terms of hold-up play, in terms of bringing other players into the game and being that nuisance factor as well. I think his work rate's underrated. I don't think that gets flagged up enough.
We'll flag up here, Mark.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you talked about Tonali chasing down a play against Manchester United last season. Voldemort has done this in pretty much every single game he's played so far, Newcastle United, where he just chases a player back and wins. He did it against Forest. They were kind of midway in their own half, advancing towards the halfway line, and Voldemort just all of a sudden sprints from behind, gets the ball, wins it, and Newcastle United are turned around and heading back up the pitch. And the fans love that. They absolutely love that. They love the fact he's scoring goals. But what will save him is the wrong term of phrase, but I'll use it anyway, that when this barren run does come, because it will do, it's not a criticism of him, it's just football, the best go through spells like that, is that work ethic. And we go back to Alexander Isak, and we will stop talking about him eventually. But I don't know if you could say the same applied to him. You think back towards the end of last season when he wasn't scoring goals and he wasn't really doing much else. With Nick Voldemort, what you've got is a player who, if he's not getting on the score sheet, he's still been an instrumental part of this Newcastle United side, whether it's bringing others into play, whether it is chasing others down and coming deep to make sure that opposition does not advance. And that is something that fans just love to see.
Do you know, I'm in pains to compare them because they're two very different forwards. And I don't, as you say, I don't really want to get into this thing where we are bringing him up every week because he's part of Newcastle United's past now. But the big difference I feel is Nick Voldemort, if he's not involved in the game, will go and get involved in the game. He will drop deep. He'll go and link up. He'll go and demand the ball from someone. And he'll be part of that unit. Whereas with Isak, I think we found, and again, this isn't sour grapes, this is experience of watching him for best part of 3 years. If he wasn't in a game, he just wasn't in a game. Yes, he might still score, but he wouldn't go and get involved in build-up as much as Voldemort does. So I think that's quite a big difference. I'm not trying to say that makes Voldemort a better player or anything like that. I just think it's a big difference. And I think when Newcastle have the players around Nick Voldemort that they do now, when they have players like the two wingers, or the four wingers, I guess, with the two that came off the bench as well, when they do have midfielders willing to drive on, then you look at it and you think maybe he is a good fit after all. When people are saying how they're going to fit him in, maybe this is a good fit. And I think, again, speak about the hit rate when Newcastle have gone big. When Newcastle have gone big in terms of spending, the hit rate for signings is incredible. And this looks to be another one. And I think the recruitment team, I think Steve Nixon and everyone involved in making this deal come to fruition deserve a lot of credit because, and I'm trying not to get carried away because I think we do need to just be a little bit reserved. There will be a sticky spell for him. It will come, but the early signs are very, very promising.
Certainly so. Penalty, did you think it was heading over? We've got a few people in the comments saying even now they still think it's heading into Gallagher.
Yeah, there was a little when he's hit it.
Precise, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like to see him try that every time, put it that way. But no, it was an unbelievable penalty, wasn't it? And there was a little initial worry that it was going to hit, the strawberry. But
what did you make of in the build of the penalty? Because obviously they check it as they normally do, and there was a bit of a delay, and players are running over to get a few drinks, and all of a sudden Matt Sells runs from his goal line over to the dugout, and you see, I thought Trippier was going to wrestle him to the floor, runs over to get a drink, and in reality he's getting instructions from the coaching staff. Trippier, he runs back past Trippier. I'm thinking Trippier's going to rugby tackle him here. What did you make of that?
I don't mind that. I think you're looking at we spoke a lot about Kieran Trippier's importance to Newcastle United, and there's been a lot of talk about his future, but I tell you what, I would give him another 3-year deal now. I would give him 3 years. I think he could see out his career at Newcastle easily. I think he would still be a big part of that squad 3 years down the line. I think his importance off the field as much as on it can't be underplayed. I look at him and he's a standard setter. He's also very savvy when it comes to the dark arts on the pitch. Thank you, Diego Simeone, for that one. I think you saw it yesterday with what you're talking about. Honestly, everything that we thought Kieran Trippier would be when he signed, he has become. I think he's still capable of playing at the very highest level for another 2-3 years. I think he's out of contract at the end of this season, but there's been a little bit of talk about a new deal. It may not be 3 years. If it does come, it may just be the one that they tend to do when a player does get to that stage of his career, as I've done with Fabian Schär, for example. But for me, I would happily see Kieran Trippier stick around for another 3 years.
3 years?
I mean it, yeah, I mean it. Was he now 30?
35. He could be our James Milner, right?
Why not? He's fit enough. We've seen that. He's got the professionalism. He's got everything.
Yeah, I thought he was key yesterday, just in terms of, at least in my point of view, just making sure Newcastle United weren't getting distracted by the little bits of trouble they had breaking down Forest. That experience of let's keep going, let's keep driving, getting the instructions out. We saw it when there was a substitution. He's just directing that. Like, he's key from all over the shop. His delivery's fantastic going forward. And you also interestingly think, you watch Dan Burn over at left back, and there was a few times he was got at, and it was a hard watch. Obviously, he's playing there because Newcastle United haven't got Tino Livramento, they haven't got Lewis Hall. I think Kieran Trippier has adapted his game to go along with his age. He knows that if he goes too far, the ball's going to go over the top, and he's going to get done for pace. So what he does, he understands that. He's measured in what he does. I think Dan Burn is still working on that. I don't think Dan Burn has adapted his game to what he can offer at left back now. He recovered quite well in the second half. There was one particular nervous moment where he tries to bring the ball down, gives it away, but he recovers so well. And overall, I thought he had a decent game. However, you put him up against Minter in a few weeks' time, that's a bit of a worry. I just think if he can take a leaf out of Trippier's book by just adapting the game and kind of maybe accepting that I haven't got the pace, this is where I am at my most vulnerable.
Yeah,
he'll do all right, but I do think it's a little bit of a concern.
I'm really pleased you brought that up about Trippier, because that was going to be my next point. That he's come up against some pacey wingers this season, but he uses his positional sense, his knowledge of the game. Again, a little bit of the dark arts as well. And is such an intelligent player on the pitch that I don't think we've seen him beaten too many times. I still don't think he's slow, by the way, for his age. Sorry, but I still think there's pace in there. And you look at the way he got forward yesterday; his engine's unbelievable. So yeah, I think a good point about Burn. I thought he did all right yesterday. I'd still feel more comfortable if he was at centre back and there was a natural left back in there. But that's how it's got to be for now. It's the hand that Newcastle have been dealt. He's doing a job. We know we'll get the professional standards from Dan Burn. And maybe, again, go back to the last Champions League season, maybe Dan Burn at left back gives that balance of allowing Trippier to get further forward with a bit more ease. So there is that payoff as well.
There is, but Minter.
Yeah, well, you know what? Then the responsibility goes upon an Anthony Gordon or whoever plays left side of the front three to get back and support.
But that, I agree. But that's kind of the knock-on effect, though, isn't it? Like, you should have your left back being, for the most part, okay with defending against a winger like Minter. Now, Dan Burn, look, again, this is not a slight on Dan Burn at all. He's been superb this season. Brilliant last season. I think I voted my player of the season last season. I thought,
I agree,
excellent. And it's not his fault. He's been put in that position by Eddie Howe. It's not Eddie Howe's fault. He's been put in that position by two injuries to your fullbacks. But I do wonder whether against Brighton you have to do something a little bit else. You have to do something a little bit different. Whether it's moving Trippier over to left back and playing Emil Kraft at right back, whether it's bringing Alex Murphy on and playing him at left back, but I can't see that happening. I just think if Dan Burn gets turned over by Yakuba Minter, then the noise will be loud and it will be justified, because if we're looking at our worst case scenario about that left back position, that's it. A speedy winger against Dan Burn. Now, he's done it before. I mean, he put Saka in his pocket, didn't he? But a little bit older, it's a concern. But then Eddie, I would say, well, what can I really do?
What's the alternative? Yeah, and that's the issue, isn't it? You look at it now. I mean, I watched Alex Murphy yesterday for the under-21s against Tottenham, and he didn't give the impression of a first-team ready player. I realise he does have some support within the fan base. There are some that feel he should have got a chance, but didn't really grasp his chance on loan at Bolton last season.
But it speaks volumes that he's playing there.
Yeah,
for the under-21s,
and not even in the squad
when Newcastle in this position.
Yeah, it does. It does. It's a good point, and I think we're probably looking at a stage now where Alex will need to go out on loan to get experience and a good loan.
Is there a case that we could see Leo Shahar potentially coming at right back and Trippier over?
Too early.
Too early?
It's too early, yeah. I'm not saying he couldn't do a job at some point. I think I'm one of Leo Shahar's biggest fans, everything I've seen of him. But I think to throw him into the Premier League at the moment would be just too much too soon. I think he'll probably get a first-team appearance this season, whether it's in the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup at some point. But yeah, I think at the moment, you're right to pull up that kind of encounter between Yankuba Minter and Byrne, but it's down to Dan to use his experience. And I think the one thing we've learned over the last 3 years really, is that Dan Byrne consistently proves doubters wrong. And I think, there isn't probably a greater professional within that football club than Dan Byrne. So I think he will more than likely play there because he has to against Brighton. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does exactly the job Eddie Howe asked of him.
Yeah, I mean, every time we questioned him when he played at left back a couple of seasons ago, he kind of came back and shut everyone up. So more of that.
This is what I love about him, though. Throughout his career, and I'm talking way back from when he was released by Newcastle, and went on trial with Darlington, signed for them. Then every time he's taken a step up the football pyramid, he's had doubters, and he's just consistently proved them wrong. He's done it within the England squad. We class him as an England regular now, can't we? He's been in every squad in the last three international breaks. So I think let's be honest. If any player's going to prove us wrong, it'll be Dan Byrne.
Yep, and I would love Dan to shut me up.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Gary says Byrne has to be a yard ahead in his mind to be able to compete against faster wingers at left back. That amount of concentration over 90 minutes takes some doing. And again, it's the talk of rotation, isn't it? With all the games coming, if Lewis Hall is out even just for 5, 6, 7 weeks, that's a lot of games for Dan Byrne to play. I mean, he's already played a hell of a lot of games. But again, like others in that team, he seems to have a great engine. So long may his good form continue. You mentioned Malik Chiao. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. There was a moment late in that game where Forest got down the left-hand side and Chiao dives in and blocks an effort from the left-hand side. And it was just an absolutely fantastic reading of the game, because the Forest players got a couple of yards on him, and he could kind of dive in a little bit too early, but he just bides his time. And right when that trigger's pulled, there he is. Great block. 7 out of 10 duels won, 91% passing accuracy, 42 out of 46, and 7 interceptions. Botman as well. Fantastic. Is that now the partnership? Is that Newcastle's first choice partnership?
I think it's potentially Newcastle's first choice partnership for the next 7, 8 years or even longer. I love the fact that Sven Botman's come back from these injuries and looks as good as he does. I loved him when he first signed. Just everything about him, his power, his strength, bit of pace, his distribution is vastly overlooked, by the way. He is better on the ball than people can give him credit for. I always felt there would come a time when he is the first choice kind of left-sided centre-back. And with Malik Chiao, I just think, again, I go back to the hit rate of big money signings. And again, we go back to proving doubters wrong, which when Chiao came in, there was sniping from Italy about he's not worth this, he's not worth that, he's not this, he's not that. There were people within the Premier League that said similar, and I mean pundits said similar, he'll not cope in the Premier League, he's not this. Everything I've seen of him so far, in every appearance that he's put in, makes me think Newcastle have got an absolute gem here. I look at that partnership, the balance. They're clearly good communicators between the two of them because they don't get pulled apart a lot. I just think there's something that could be very, very special there between the two of them. We go back again to Tina Livermore and Lewis Hall. That's potentially a back four for a decade. If they stay fit and stay at Newcastle, that could be an unbelievable back four. I just think with Chow, though, he's just got a little bit of everything, hasn't he? He looks an intelligent defender. He doesn't dive in. He's not rash. His control's excellent. His discipline's excellent. His awareness of what's going on around him in the game is top level. I think he could be an incredible signing, and again another one that that can be going down as a hit for the recruitment team.
Yep, certainly so, and fingers crossed that their great form together continues. Let us know in the comments if it is Chow and Botman for the foreseeable for you, or does Dan Burn come back in when everyone's fit? Does Fabian Schär get a look in? I mean, I said the other week, if there's a time he didn't want to get injured with Fabian Schär, it was probably when he did, because you've got two quality centre-backs, one finding his feet, one coming back to form. Really an opportunity for them to really show what they're all about, and they've taken it. So that battle for centre-back, throwing down Burn, Lascelles keeping the standards high during the week as well. I mean, that is a battle for the ages, really, isn't it?
It is as well. It also offers Eddie Howe a chance to consider playing three at the back. It gives them a really good opportunity to rotate as well, to make sure that players avoid injury and avoid, maybe lacking in fitness and tiredness and all that. Because if he was to say at a game next month at some point, I'm going to rest Malik Chow and I'm going to bring in Fabian Schär, you wouldn't think, oh, God. If he was to say, if Burn was able to play at left centre-back and Botman was rested, you wouldn't panic, would you? Which I can't remember the last time I said that about Newcastle defence. If there's going to be changes, you always thought that's a bit of a downturn, but it won't be this time. We know it won't. But I do think at this point in time, given what they've done in recent games, Chow and Botman are in possession of the shirt, 100%.
Let us know in the comments your thoughts. A little word for the atmosphere. Felt a little bit flat yesterday. It wasn't kind of the boisterous cauldron of fire that we've come to expect at St James's Park. I mean, is that just because of a Sunday afternoon kickoff?
I never think Sunday 2:00 games are great atmospheres. I think, and I don't think that's just Newcastle, by the way. I think it's across the Premier League. I think it's just nearly kick-off on a Sunday. It doesn't help the atmosphere. If it had been a 4:30 kickoff, I think you would have seen something a bit more raucous. I don't think it was a bad atmosphere. It just didn't hit the levels that it normally does. But I also don't really think that matters. I don't think it's important, if I'm honest.
No, I mean, we all have quiet days, don't we?
Of course we do.
Let's talk about Alan Pardrew.
Oh, please do. Please do.
Now, you may have not seen, but I'm assuming you probably have done, Alan Pardrew on Talk Sport yesterday, and he's claimed that Newcastle United could be potential title challengers. You've heard me say that correctly, ladies and gents, and I've gone back, I've watched the video, I've found some quotes as well, backing up what he said on the video. So it is legit. It's not some AI nonsense. It is what he has said. Newcastle are just picking up speed a little bit, and they've got Wissa to come back as well, who's going to be a massive help to them in terms of forward momentum. I think Newcastle are definitely in the shout for perhaps even winning the league. I know that's hard to think. Like that at the moment. I think they're definitely a contender. I do. When I look at other teams, if I was Eddie with the squad he's got and the momentum, he's got the crowd firmly on his side. I'm talking about the manager. He's enough tools in his little kit bag there, who have been together for years now. They've obviously got the cup out of the way last year in terms of winning a trophy, less pressure on them. I think they've got a massive chance. The host of this Talk Sport show, straight away went, whoa, Alan, you can't say that. Like, you got to explain yourself. Give Alan Pardrew the chance to row back. He didn't. He dived in with the second lot of quotes that you've read there. Newcastle United title contenders, Mark. I'm sorry. I love the fact that he's that ambitious and that hopeful. He's having a laugh, though, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah. Not yet. But what I'll say, and I'm not saying they're going to be at all, if Newcastle can unlock their attacking potential and retain the quality in midfield and the solidity in defence and discipline, then they can get to those levels at some point. But a lot of it depends on if they can unlock the potential at the top end of the pitch. Because at the moment, I see them as a very solid side, not particularly adventurous because they're still finding their feet as an attacking unit. But if they retain both sides of those games, both sides of the game, there's no reason why they can't really challenge at the top end.
Ooh.
Not this season, but potentially in the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think they need a few more quality players added to the squad before we even consider them being.
So there's a question for everyone. What's success this season?
Champions League and a final.
I would say Europe and a good cup run in one of the cups. So
well, I think, though, if it's Europa League or Europa Conference and just a good cup run, I'm not sure that's enough.
By cup run, I mean, but yeah.
I think it has to be a final, hopefully win it. But I also think top 4. I think top 4 in many ways is a must. It's a condition that has to be met. And I'm not saying if it's not met, anyhow it goes. I'm not saying that at all. But I just think for the journey Newcastle United have still to come in terms of off the field and the amount of money and value that brings in, you can't be a club that hits the Champions League one season, doesn't the next, does the year after. You have to be in every single season if you're going to reach that top spot, which we all hope to do, which we know the owners want them to do. So Champions League is the bedrock to that, so it has to be Champions League.
I don't think there's any reason they can't do that.
Yeah, I think they've got a good chance. This season's been very stop-start, but we've always maintained it's just got to click, and when it does, they will be unstoppable. They've beaten Union, they've beaten Nottingham Forest, but that's by no means their best.
No.
It's nowhere near, not even half towards their best. So let's just think about what they can do. Hopefully, when they get the whistle back, Hall, Livramento, Waldemar is a little bit more settled. Alanga's finding his feet. Scary, scary prospect.
It is. It really is, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say about the next. I think what we're seeing now is a kind of new Newcastle United development where we know Wissa to an extent is a kind of medium-term signing. He's not long-term. You might get sort of 2 years out of him, but I think what you'll see is more signings over the next sort of 3-4 windows that are maybe that 20 to 25 age bracket, like Bruno was, like Tonali was, like your Livramentos and your Halls and Chows and Botmans. That's when Newcastle spend the big money. They do it in that age bracket so the team can develop, and I think you'll see more coming in like that. But
to be able to do that window after window, what do you need?
It's
Champions League. It's a vicious circle, but I think they will get the Champions League this season. Well, we've got some questions to finish off. Thank you very much for sending them in. The email address is the eibwpodcast@reachplc.com. Henry from Whitley Bay has emailed in. Hello to you guys. Thanks for the show. Mark, I want to ask you whether you think January left back is a priority. As far as of course, on from news that Lewis Hall will be missing in action for a wee while, as will Tino Livramento. They're currently left with Dan Burn. You could, as we've mentioned, put Trippier out there, potentially Kraft, Alex Murphy. Matt Target is away on loan at Bowen, doing very well by all accounts. What does January look like in terms of that left back slot?
A lot will depend on the scans, won't it? And the results of the scans for Lewis Hall. I think if they come back and they are long term and Livramento is out again long term, then there probably will be consideration given to it, whether it's a loan deal maybe to see them through at the end of the season and then kind of revisit it next summer. I don't know, but it's a difficult one to answer. I mean, there are players because they're available, they're not available, but there are players we were talking about who are maybe heading towards the final 6 months of the deal or the final 18 months of the deal, which is where Newcastle like to try and sort of do business at times. So there probably are options there available, but I think it'll be a difficult one to answer. I mean, I looked at it and you've got people like Tyreek Mitchell at Crystal Palace, I think is in the last 18 months of his deal. So there will be players like him, but then again, Palace are absolutely flying, so why would they sell him? But it's something I think they may consider if the worst, comes with the scans.
If Lewis Hall is back fighting fit, he gets to January, he's played loads of games, he's okay. Do you still feel they're all right at left back? Because they've got hopefully Tino, Dan Burner. I look at that and I think even if everyone's fit, I think you need a left back.
I think so. Say everyone's fit, there probably is a need for a left back. However, I wouldn't necessarily see that as a priority. I think that may be something they'll look at next summer to give Lewis Hall competition. I think a goalkeeper will come into consideration next summer, as well as Nick Pope's. He's been unbelievable this season, if we're honest. But I think in terms of long term, they've got a decision to make on Ramsdale. But even if they were to sign Ramsdale, they still probably need another long-term goalkeeper. I think we spoke about that a few weeks back, didn't we? So I just feel as if, look, if the scans come back and Hall is out for a while, it could be considered. But I think if, as we hope, it isn't long-term, then I think that's probably other priorities.
No, I disagree. I think, excuse me, I think if everyone is fighting fit, they would still need a left back in January. Yeah. Someone to come kind of as cover rather than someone rivaling Lewis Hall. So maybe Rico Henry, if he's overcome his injury. He's at Brentford currently. Someone that doesn't cost the earth but does a job coming off the bench or in cup games, and then can just back Lewis Hall and Team Livramento, because of course you will have that switch option. And then hopefully by the time we get to the summer into next season, Leo Shahar has stepped up and he is there at right back, pushing Team Livramento for that spot, and that's where that kind of depth comes. Thank you for the question. We've got another question in here from Lewis, who says, do you think there's a chance Newcastle United could get Elliot Anderson back?
Based on Eddie Howe's quotas, I think there would certainly be a desire if that opportunity ever arose. Obviously, he spoke about it on Friday, didn't he, and said that the deal was one they didn't really want to do but felt they had to. I think he said there wasn't a buyback clause in there because of the conditions of the deal and the fact they had to force it through. I would have him back in a heartbeat, but at the same time, I think it's a long way off happening. I think Elliot... The thing is, what we've got to consider here is if Elliot Anderson had stayed at Newcastle, would he have got the exposure to the Premier League that he has at Forest? I'm not sure he would. Would he have developed... I'm not saying he wouldn't have developed at Newcastle, but I don't think he would have developed as quickly as he has, playing week in, week out. I think Nuno, and I realise he's been moved on now, but I think he did an unbelievable job with him as a coach. I think Elliot, from the time I saw him, first time I saw him in the under-18s, I thought there was a player in there. I was one of the ones that said at 21s he was ready quite early on, along with many others, by the way. He was one of the good loans that Newcastle have had, where he went to Bristol Rovers, probably went below where he should have done, if we're honest, but had a good loan, came back, impressed in pre-season. He is the example of what Newcastle's academy players now need to do. They need to grasp opportunities when they come to them. And I don't think enough are.
I mean, part of me wonders, like, if the opportunity arose in the next 18 months, to whether he might actually turn it down. As daft as that sounds, because you're offering a boy Newcastle United fan to come back to a club he didn't want to leave, a player that the club didn't want to sell. But the reality is that if they've still got Bruno, Tonali, Joelinton, and another, maybe Lewis Miley as well, has come on leaps and bounds.
Ramsey.
Yeah, Ramsey. Elliot Anderson will be asking the question, okay, well, at Forest, I'm first team. I'm first choice. I'm getting in call-ups. I come back to Tyneside. Yes, it's all romantic. It's lovely. I'm coming back home, but I'm not coming back home just to sit on the bench. Like, I want guaranteed football. So I wonder, maybe if it's offered to him the next, year or a bit, 2 years, whatever it may be, he might actually think, yeah, I'd love it, but for the good of my career, it's not the right move.
And he seems that intelligent that he would do that and aware of his own situation. So yeah, I think there's a valid point to be made there. In an ideal world, he'd still be at the football club, but again, I still question whether he'd be where he is in his career now if he'd stayed at Newcastle.
I don't think he would be at all, but great to see him doing so well. Michael has written in and says, Semenyo is on fire for Bournemouth. Why didn't Newcastle make a move for him instead of Alanga?
I wouldn't be writing off Alanga. Not that I'm suggesting he is, but I just think Alanga was very much a long-term target. I wonder if with Semenyo, maybe the price tag was going to be too much. I think Bournemouth were asking astronomical fees by all accounts. Elanga was possibly more in Newcastle's price band that they wanted to pay. Newcastle obviously saw something in Elanga because we know he's been a long-term target. So I think maybe it's just preference. Look, I think Semenyo's a wonderful player, I really do. I think the trajectory of his career has been incredible, from a player that couldn't get a game on loan at Sunderland to where he is now, when he's one of the most dangerous, at this point in time, one of the most dangerous wingers in the league.
Let me ask you a question about that, because I tweeted out on Friday, fantastic player, cost them 10 million quid, what a bit of business. But had Newcastle United made that move, even if they make that move now, for example, how welcome do you think someone like that will be? Now, the way I look at that is, I think if they make that move for a championship player, they've done their homework. They must believe that player has something great. However, given the ambition and the stated aims, signing a player for £10 million from Bristol City wouldn't go down well with everyone, right?
Well, the example with that is Jack Rodoni, isn't it? Because they were linked with him in the summer, and they looked at him at Coventry. Had a brilliant season for Coventry last season. And you saw it then when there was that speculation. I think the Chronicle put out a few pieces saying that, they've watched him, and you looked at some of the replies, and it was like, what was signed players from Coventry for? And it's like, well, not every player that's going to make it in the Premier League is going to come from big clubs in Europe or big clubs in the Premier League or such like. There are going to be gems out there, and Newcastle have kind of still got a box clever when it comes to recruitment. Not every signing is going to be a 45 million signing from the Bundesliga or from Serie A. So they've got to keep their eyes open. They've got to look at every opportunity that's out there. If Steve Nixon's watched a player and said to Newcastle he's worth a look or he's worth a bid, given what he's done recently and given what the recruitment team's done recently, I think you've got to back them.
There we go. Got a few comments just to finish off the episode. Before, actually, I asked Mark a nice trivia question. You ready for it?
Okay.
You don't know what's coming, do you? Not at all. Les has commented about the ambitions for this season and says they would love to win the World Cup, the FA Cup rather. I mean, winning the World Cup would be something. Consistency of getting into the UEFA Champions League can not be underestimated, but winning the FA Cup would be immense. And that's been backed up by Gary, who says, yes, I'd love to win the FA Cup. We've got a split kind of opinion on Elliot Anderson. Darren saying Forest won £80 million for Anderson. Graham saying, I think we should forget Anderson, better value around. And there's a lad in Italy, apparently, Tonali's mate in the national team for about £35 million. Gary says Anderson would have been one step ahead of Miley, cover for Joelinton, Bruno and Tonali. It's done his development good for leaving. Tom says signing Anderson back would actually do our European ambitions a massive boost because he'd have the homegrown status and train the club between the key age span. I think he'd get plenty of game time with rotations in midfield. All top European teams rotate their midfield throughout a season, competing in multiple competitions. So there we go. And Darren also says FA Cup this season, please. Right. Want to finish on a bit of trivia?
Go on.
So Nick Valdemare becomes the first Newcastle United player to score in his first 3 league home games since Alan Shearer. You heard that stat recently? It's true.
And Les Ferdinand the season before, wasn't it?
Great stat, that, isn't it? Great company. Can you name 3 teams Alan Shearer scored against?
Also, Wimbledon, Sheffield Wednesday, and Blackburn Rovers.
Oh, man. Are you looking at my screen?
I didn't need to.
Okay. Fair enough. I knew he scored against Wimbledon because I remember the first goal. The free kick was lovely.
Sheffield Wednesday penalty. Blackburn a penalty.
Yeah, and then they got beat off. Did they get beat off Everton as well? That was last.
That's the first game.
Yeah, Everton, because Speed was in for Everton, wasn't it? I remember that. And then lovely blue jersey.
David Hunter scored a penalty for them,
as he always did. But there you go. Well, that was short and sweet, wasn't it?
Sorry.
That's fine. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. It's been a pleasure as always. Do leave us a rating and review on the Journey platform. Do get into the comments if you're watching later on YouTube. Hit thumbs up. Hit subscribe to the channel as well. And make sure you take advantage of your NordVPN discounted offer. Support the podcast and protect yourself at the same time. And me and Mark will see you guys next week.